Another response video to one of the crazy anarchists. I was watching a few of them, went looking around at some of the stuff, and was curious to see who was subscribing to it. You'd see some of the big names, Captain Awesome, Amazing Atheist, and such. That Dominique chick, it really is this whole, Ayn Rand thing. Objectivism, and anarchy. I mean, this is really, they have a lot of subscribers, they get a lot of views for these videos, and I really didn't see this much of a movement out there. I mean, yeah, the libertarians have always been out there, but it basically all falls into that category, I guess. It's all degrees of libertarianism, and this idea of abolishing the government, and the question they'll never get to, the fundamental issue, they're always against the IRS and all this other crap, and it's really about progressive taxation and inheritance. And these are the two fundamental ideas, and they don't even touch them, they don't go near them. So that's my challenge to these people, is to first explain why inheritance isn't a cheat, how it doesn't break any concept of fairness. You talk about a competition, where's the competition? Obviously there's no competition. If one man has $10 million to invest in a business and another man has $10, we know who's going to win that competition. There's no competition. That's my first criticism. I mean, if you get beyond just the politics of it, the system design part of it, the way of how it would even function, is just as a starting point, as a premise. Even the existing government is endorsing inheritance, and like I said, that's to me a corruption. And right there, you've broken the idea of fairness. You've basically said that there's an earning or a deserving that people are born with, that there should be a birthright entitlement, and that I just like an explanation of how that fits with any kind of notion of fairness. And so beyond that, they just keep using all this. I mean, this whole rhetoric is just so objectivist, anarchist, and then they just talk. This rhetoric is just so, and it never ends. They just keep doing it. You point it out, you make a joke out of it, and they just keep on talking. I mean, this, use of this initiation of force, non-initiation of force, and so they play this rationality game where they go back, to the chicken and egg about who initiated what force. And so you find out that, okay, so everybody has to, that's the rule that guides everybody, is that no one will initiate force. And it's stupid, because the definition of force is any restriction, any limitation. So you initiate force by saying, okay, everybody can't have a nuclear bomb. Well, that's an initiation of force, because you have a rule, and then you're planning on enforcing the rule. That's an initiation of force. So that, so the game is already over. I mean, that's, it's a good example, just because, in their little, everybody's a free agent capitalism game, where you don't regulate anything. So everybody could just go into the nuclear power business. There'd be no limitations. Please, so obviously, we have to control that. There's obviously chemicals that can be, very dangerous if they're made publicly accessible. So what are you going to do about all this stuff? This idea that you can control any of this without a national government is idiotic. Effectively control it anyway. And it just, so look, even we take the small libertarian model of going back to a bunch of competing states or something. Where do we have evidence of that working anywhere? Where does it, the cooperation breaks down? All you create is these these borders, and then you create artificial hostilities, and then people just fight over the resources because state A has certain resources and state B has other resources. They're going to compete with each other for stealing from each other, basically, and they're going to get into fights and arguments, and war seems the inevitable result of that if there isn't anything to stop them. And presumably in your world there wouldn't be anything to stop them. There wouldn't be any UN or anything else. And so it would be, might makes right. And there's just no evidence anywhere that any of this could ever work. I mean, there's no evidence in history that when, there have been benign nations in history who didn't even have a military, and what they got, what that earned them was annihilation, because force and power wants more. They always want more. They're not, they say, this collective will say, well, look, we're running low on fuel oil, we're running low on this, but they're making us pay too much for it, so we're going to take their oil. I mean, that's the logical conclusion. And, all these businesses you think are going to function without violating each other's, intellectual property and whatnot. I mean, they'd be going on all the time. And because there wouldn't be any force, you would be taking all the teeth out of any regulatory force. And, so the profit of the theft would be greater than the penalty for the theft, because the penalty would take so long to ever be imposed that people would already skip the country or skip to another province or done whatever. There'd be all kinds of opportunity to exploit the lack of diligence of any kind of regulatory agency, because there wouldn't be any regulatory agency. All there'd be was a punitive agency, a punishment agency. And punishment always comes too late. There's no point, by then it's the damage has been done. And then it's just a matter of trying to undo damage. And how do you undo damage? I mean, you can kill 1,000 people and there's not going to be any compensation for that. There's not going to be any way to make restitution. So it's just such bullshit. And it's just amazing that people are engaged in this conversation. I don't know where it leads. I mean, that the politics is so stupid. And you're saying, well, I wonder what their alternative is. I mean, I wonder what they vote for, realistically. I mean, are these Republicans? I mean, they certainly don't have any love for democracy, so I guess they can't be Democrats, and they certainly don't seem to have much appreciation for any kind of social network, any kind of network that would appreciate being responsible ahead of time. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't. They're obviously Republicans. They just make neocons look like liberals, I guess. I mean, I don't know how you get any further right than this, and yet they use jargon. They've stolen the jargon of the left. It's like, oh, we're defending against violence. We're tying knots in a gun. Using that in his video. I mean, what an obscenity, because he would obviously say everybody should have all kinds of rights, bazookas, whatever you want. Yeah, you should have a right to it. And part of your property rights, no doubt, and your right to defend your property would include, ballistic missiles or whatever it took, I would presume. There would be nothing to prevent that or regulate that. So whatever you could build, I suppose. Or yeah, you can buy. I guess he would make it legal to buy it. So yeah, and this whole idea that it's human nature, that human nature isn't thieving and selfish, is just stupid. I mean, it's stupid. I mean, it's obvious in every animal organism is self-defensive and self-concerned first. And then if they're a little more sophisticated, like some mammals, you use the example of parasites grouping together for their own interest. They're not doing it for their own interest. They're doing it because of some really, crude reflexive biology. But regardless, a better example I think would be mammals that protect the weak and the young. They'll create a circle around, lots of hooved animals do this, they'll protect their society. You know, they'll protect their group, their family unit, their extended family, and you know, there is no self-interest in it, in the sense that the individual is guaranteed nothing by doing that in the short run. They're only guaranteed something in the long run. It's like an ant colony. I mean, the individual doesn't matter. And it's all about preserving the group. And that's sort of what government intends to do. It intends to create law and a rule of law and a social order that is sustainable and maintainable, and creates a civilization that is survivable and comfortable. And that's the basic intent, and you can contrive it and bend it into all kinds of stuff because there's some corruption, but the corruption isn't the purpose.